Hi everyone, welcome to this video on control flow structures in JavaScript. My name is Ademola and I will be explaining and also providing practical example in depth on control flow structures in JavaScript, including conditional statements, loops, and functions. Okay, so that we are guided as usual, I would like to type out what we will be explaining today. And I said we're going to be explaining control structures. All right, sorry. So structures in JavaScript. Okay, and I said this will include conditional statements. Yeah, conditional statements, loops, and functions. Okay, so yeah, so like I said, we'll be treating control structures in JavaScript, which will include conditional statements, loops, and functions. So conditional statements are used to execute different blocks of code based on a predefined conditions. Okay, so in all, we have 4 types of conditional statements that is available to us. We have if statements. Okay, we have else, or let me say if else statements. We also have else if. Okay, you can take note of that, if else and else if. Okay, so we say statements, and lastly we have the switch case. All right, so those are the 4 important statements that we have in JavaScript. Okay, so explaining that, if for example is used to specify a condition that is true, okay, and else is used to run a code block if the first one is false, okay, and else if we run a new condition if the first condition is not true. All right, so I know you might be a bit confused with my explanation, but yeah, there will be a practical example to try and explain in depth of what I meant by my statements. Okay, so for example, if we are working with something like if we are working like something like if, so to practically explain if, let's say I have let age equals 15. Okay, so we have a variable age equal to 15 with a value of 15. Okay, so I can say if age is equal or greater, if it is equal, is greater or equal to 15. Okay, so this is a true, this will have a true value. Okay, so I can say console the log age. Okay, and you see that we have age because I'm checking. What I'm doing is to add a conditional statement that allows me to run this code block. Okay, so I want to check if the age is greater or equal to 15. So in this case, the age is not greater than 15, but it's equal to 15. Then it automatically prints the age or return the age. Okay, so that's how if works. So if I go to the if else statement, okay, I try to say okay, I can still use the variable of age. Okay, so I can say if age if age is greater than 15, if age is greater than 15, and I can also say else. Okay, so that should be else. Then I should console the log age. Okay, so here, since we don't have so here you can see that we already have having 15 because we are trying to check if age is greater than 15, which it is not. It's not greater than 15, is equal to 15. So it means that this block, the if block, will not automatically run, right? Because that is a falsy value. Okay, so if I say age, then you see that we don't have the result of that because age is not greater than 15. So it's jump or break the loop here or break the block here, then move to else to print out the results. Okay, so that is that's about if else. Okay, so then to explain else if, we can demonstrate that by doing this. We can say const time of day is equal to, let me say, afternoon. All right, so I can say if time of day is equal to morning, if it's equal to morning, then I want to say good, I'll say good morning. Okay, I'll say good morning. Else, if time of day, time of day is equal to afternoon. Okay, I want to console the log. Good afternoon. Okay, else if time of day is equal to evening, is equal to evening, then I want to console the log good evening. Alright, so I'm hoping that you are following this and you are understanding it just the way I'm explaining. And yeah, so we can add an exclamation mark to that. Okay, so yeah, I think there's a mistake here. This should be dot. Alright, so if we look at this, then I know you would have decoded what is happening here, right? So for else if statements, I have a const of time of date, which is equal to afternoon. So in the first block of if of the conditional statement, I'm trying to check if the time of date is equal to morning, but no, it is not equal to morning, so we cannot have our results here. Then it automatically moves to the next conditional statement and check if time of date is equal to afternoon. Yes, it is equal to afternoon. That is the variable that we just declared here. And for that, we are saying good afternoon, right? So by that, it will ignore the next if block. Then we can also say else and console the log no time of day set yet. All right, so this is how if else works in JavaScript. If I change the variable afternoon to morning, then you see that we have good morning. And if I have an empty string that has nothing, you can see that it's telling me that no time of day is set yet. Okay, no time of day set yet. So that is how if statements works in JavaScript. Okay, and that's it on else if. If you are enjoying this, don't forget to subscribe and like and comment to this video. All right, next we'll talk about switch case. Switch case is an alternative to else if statements. It makes code much cleaner and readable. You can see that writing nested else if we kind of make our code look messy, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so we can use switch case to make our code more cleaner, more readable, and more maintainable. Okay, so we can, for that example, we can say switch. Okay, and then we add our time of date. Okay, and then we have our curly brackets. All right, so for this, we'll say case. Okay, if the case is morning. Okay, if the case is morning, then we can say console the log good morning. All right, then we want to break out of that code, of that block, we want to break out. Then we want to check the next case. If the case is afternoon, we want to console the log good afternoon. Okay, I want to add the exclamation mark. Then we want to break. Okay, and also we want to check the case. If case is evening, okay, then we want to console the log good evening. All right, so that's it. And then we want to break out of that block. Okay, and next we want to have a default default message. Okay, so for the default, okay, I want to say just like we have it in the if the else if statement, I want to also say console the log I'll say no time of the set yet. So that's it. And if you look at it, you will also agree with me that the switch looks clearer, and it's maintainable. Okay, so if I go up here and change this to evening, you can see that we have good evening in the switch case. Okay, so that's how switch case works, and that's how it is different from else if. They do the same work, but switch case looks cleaner and looks clearer than switch than else if. Sorry. All right, so yeah, that's that on switch case, else if, and if else. Okay, so now we want to move to the next. All right, so we'll move to the next subtopic in our topic today, which is loops. Loops executes a block code repeatedly. So that's what loops does. Loop will execute a block of code repeatedly. Okay, so I'll be explaining loops in 3 to 4 different places actually. So that you can understand what loops is about and the type of loops that you can use in JavaScript when you are working on a problem. Okay, so we have the for loop. Okay, I'll be explaining for loop. I will be explaining for in loop. I will also be explaining for of loop. Okay, so those are the loops that I will be explaining using for loop. Okay, what I will also be explaining will be while loop. Okay, we'll also be talking about sorry, so we'll also be talking about while loop. Sorry. Okay, then we'll be talking about do while loop. Yes, so that's the 5 loops that we'll be talking about. Okay, so yeah, so for the for loop we can say let num equals 10. Okay, and then we can say for let I equal to 0, then I will be less than num. Okay, and then we have our curly brackets. All right, so yeah, this is not complete, sorry. So say I plus plus. So we want to set I to 0, then we want to continue when I is less than none, then we want to increment the I as we move. Okay, so that is what we are trying to do. Okay, so I can say console.log I. All right, so you can see we have 0 to 9. Yes, as I have explained, JavaScript starts from 0 to infinity. Okay, so that's why we're having 0. So we can also do something. I think we can do a plus 1 here, and we'll be able to get 1 to 10. Okay, so the explanation for this is that this is running this block of code. It is running it repeatedly until I is equal to 10. So once I is equal to 10, the loop stops. So yes, so in the first loop, yeah, let me just do that example. In the first loop, I is 0. Then when it's return for the next loop, I becomes 1. And in the next loop, I will be 2. And in the next loop, I becomes 3, and so on. So that's how the loop will continue until I is equal to 9. Right, so when I becomes 9, that is using the count of 0 now, right? The loop stop, because the condition we are setting for the loop to continue running is when I is less than none, which is 10. So the moment I is equal to 10 is equal to 9, then the I becomes 10, the loop stops, right? Because I at that stage is equal to none, which is not the condition that we set for this for loop to run. So that's it. The next thing I want to do is I want to move to for in loop, right? So for in loop is different because it loops through the properties of an object. So when you want to use, so always remember that when you want to use for in loop, always use it in the case of an object. Okay, so I can say const, then I can say person, then equal to, then for that I can have let me just have a name, right? And I'll say Ademola, right? And can have a property of age, and I'll say 27. Okay, that's not my village, just using that for your tutorial, for your lessons, right? And also I want to say occupation, right? And I'll say a programmer. All right, so that's it. That's an object. That's what an object looks like. Then after that, I want to use a for in loop. Then I can say for let I in person. Okay, then I can console the log person of I. All right, then I have access to all of the properties of the object. Okay, so that's what for in loop does. It allows us to look through the properties of an object. Yeah, so that's how for in loop works, like I said. So all right, I will just believe that you understand for in loop with that. So let's move to the next one, which is for of loop. So in the case of a for of loop, we use for of loop most times or often, or let's say we generally use it for an array. Okay, so I can say const. Okay, so I can say const. Then I'll say yeah, let me say new array. Okay, and I can say yeah, let me use Toyota, Mazda, and let me add the last one. Let me use Audi. All right, so this is an array of strings, right? And yeah, an array can be an array of anything. We can also add numbers, and we can add boolean, yeah, like that. All right, so that's an array. Then what I want to do is I want to look through the elements of this array, right? I want to get the individual elements, right? So I can say for let array, okay, I'm using a shorthand there of new array. So with that, we'll have access to all of the elements of that array. Okay, so there I can console the log, r. All right, so you can take note of the difference between for in loop and for of loop, right? So for in loop is looping through the properties of an object, while for of loop is looping through the elements of an array. Okay, so now we can see that when I console the log the object, which is this, I used person, then a semi bracket, then the I inside of it, right? But in for of loop, I loop through the array of the new array while I'm using shorthand array here, right? Then I'm console logging the array to get the properties. So I hope you are taking note of some of these differences, right? So the next thing that I will want to talk about will be the while loop. While loop loops through a block of code as long as a specified condition is true. Okay, if that condition is still true, it will keep running just like the for loop, right? So for that I can say yeah, I can say let I, sorry, I can say let j, let me use j, equal to is equal to 0. Let me say 0 for that. Sorry, not that. Okay, so I can say 0. Then I'll say while j is less than norm. Okay, I'm still using the norm for the for loop. Okay, then I want to console the log, I want to console the log j, sorry, there should be brackets. I want to console log j, then I want to increment the j as the functions execute. Okay, so you can see that we have all the values of j now, right, which is 0, 1 to 9. Then just like a for loop, we can change this to 1 and we'll have 1 to 9, right? But that's not what we want to do. We want all the values to show, so we can do a plus 1 here and we get 1 to 10. So that's how for loop. So it's just like the same explanation for the for the for like the for loop, sorry. So like the for loop, so when this code runs at the first time, j is equal to 0, and in the next one j is equal to 1, in the next one j will be equal to 2, in the next one j will be equal to 3, on the next loop j will be equal to 4. So at that point it continues until j is equal to 9, right? So when j is equal to 9, it comes back and check again. Then by that time j will be equal to 10 and the loop will stop. It will not run j equal to 10, because the condition we are looking for is when j is less than norm, which is 10.
Okay, so that's about while loop. So one thing I would like to chip in is that while loop is a bit tricky, and using while loop as a beginner will cause you problems, because with while loop you can quickly run into infinite loop. The loop will continue forever, and you don't want to do that, right? So that's that about loop. So for this, we have explained everything about loop, and we have says that it runs code in a manner repeatedly. So the next one, before we forget, sorry, we want to do the do while loop. Okay, so for this, I'll still use the J for while loop, and also I will use our norm that we add, right? So I can say, yeah. So do while loop is like while loop, but then we want to tell the computer or the program to do something while something is specified. So a specified something, we want it to run as far as that condition of the while is true. So that's just it for do while loop. So I can say do, then I'll say console.log. Yeah, I want to console.log j, right? I want to console.log j, and then I want to do j plus plus. Yes, I want to do j plus plus. Why is that happening? Okay, I'm using capital letter J, which is wrong. Okay, so then I want to say while J is than no. Alright, so that's it. I think my VS code is a bit slow. Yeah, so we have J. This is not correct. I think there is something here. Alright, so to actually get our own result for the do while loop, let me kind of change J. So let me use K for this. I think the while loop is trying to affect how this runs. Okay, so K, then I can increment K here, then I can change the J here also to K, then we should have our results. Okay, so that's it. So what was happening before is that the J for the while loop has finished running, right? And it is kind of returning the value of that J for our do while loop. So that's why I'm using another alphabet or another variable to work on our do while. All right, so you can see that we have the answers now, and to have our normal number we can do a plus one here, and then we can see that we have 1 to 10. Okay, so that's it on while loop. So I don't have to explain how this loops run. It's still the same way that the while loop is running and the for loop is running. Okay, so that's it on loops in JavaScript. And yeah, we have covered for loop, we've covered the for in loop, we have covered the for off loop, we have covered the while loop, and also the do while loop.
Moving on, we'll be moving to functions. Okay, so we have functions in JavaScript. Okay, so functions are used to group a block of code together and execute multiple times. You understand? So a function will execute your code in a specified order. Okay, so yeah, if you don't forget, I feel I've mentioned it before that JavaScript run code from top to bottom and from left to right. Okay, so yeah, I'll be explaining functions and the types of functions that we have. So basically, we have 3 types of ways that we can declare functions in JavaScript. Okay, so the first way is to use the function declaration. Okay, and the next one is function expression. And next we have arrow function. Okay, so these are the 3 types of functions that we have and that we can declare in JavaScript. Okay, so firstly, for function declaration, I know if you see a function that's declared this way, I'll say my func. Okay, I can say my func is equal to, sorry, this is not equal to, this is a function. Yeah, I can use my func. Sorry. Then I can say a b. Okay, then I can say, yeah, sorry, that error is actually coming because of, but then let's just complete the naming convention. Okay, so let me just call the function my function. Okay, then I can return a plus b. Okay, so a function must have a return statement. Okay, that's how you can print out the result of your function. Okay, so next And before a function can actually run, you will need to call that function. So I can say let result equal to my function. Now I'm passing the parameter inside of my function, okay, and it's a and b. It's representing the values that I want to run the code on. Okay, so I can say 2, then 4. Okay, a is 2 and b is 4. Okay, so I'm hoping that you understand that. Okay, then I can console the log the result. Yeah, so I have 6 because 2 plus 4 will actually give us 6, but we are using this function to run that code. I don't know if you understand that. We have in my previous lectures we have done something like const first number equals to 2, then const second number equals to 4. So if I console the log first number, sorry, if I console the log first number, what's that? Okay, so if I first number, yeah, first number. Okay, I think there's an error. Okay, I think I did first number here. Okay, then I can also do plus second number, and I have 6. So this is doing it in variable declaration. Okay, so but instead of me doing this, going this route, I'm using function to do what I should have done like this. All right, so I'm trying to show you that so that you can understand where I'm coming from. Okay, so you can see the function is doing that for us now. It's taking the a and adding it to the b, and we are able to print the result by calling this function in our code. If we don't call it, there's no way we can get our answer. All right, so that is function declaration. So there's another way we can do it through function expression. Okay, function expression is also known as anonymous function. Okay, so we can say const that's if my okay let me use function expression func expression, okay, which will now be equal to I don't know, let's say my function yeah, so you can say it should be equal to function, okay, function, then a b, okay, and then have our curly bracket. Then we can return a plus, okay, a plus b, just as we did before. But if you notice, you would have seen the difference here. That is why we call this function expression an anonymous function. Okay, so if I say let output, let me use output here so that we don't run into duplication. Okay, so yeah, that's it. We can say func expression, and then we can say 3 times 3. Okay, then we can say console the log output, console log the output, and then what do we have? Oh, I'm so sorry for that. That's not how it should be. This is where the times is supposed to be. All right, so what I'm doing here is I am putting a function as inside of a variable, then I'm calling it, and then I'm adding the value of a and b, then I'm returning it as a times b, and then we have the result of 9 because 3 times 3 is 9. All right, so that is it about function expression. So the last one, which is arrow function, so I can, let me just declare that and show you how an arrow function is declared. Okay, so I can say const arrow function is equal to a or ab as a parameter, then I can return like the others, I can return a modulus b. All right, then I can do const another output, okay, another output, then I can say equal to the arrow function, then I'll say for okay, let me just say 12 and 3. Okay,
All right, then let me use that. Let me just say 12 and 5. Okay, then I can say console.log another function, another output. Then we have 2. Okay, so it does the same thing as the other functions. Okay, I am taking this function, I'm calling it here, then assigning it to a variable, then I'm console logging that variable. So what it does is it takes the value of 12 as A and the value of 5 as B. Then it tries to check for the times or for the number that can go in 12. 5 can go in 12 twice and it will return the value of 2. And that is what we have here. That is what modulus does. Okay, so that is it about control flow statements in JavaScript. Okay, yeah, so that's the title. That's the topic that we are treating today. Yeah, control flow structures in JavaScript. So that is like all. I think I made a mistake that imported this before. All right, so yeah, so that's control flow structure in JavaScript, right? And yeah, so that's all. If you yeah, before I go, I would like to tell you some best practices in control flow. Okay, in control flow structure. Okay, so like I always said, always make sure that you use meaningful name for your names and labels. Okay, so also avoid using nested if else statements. Instead of that, use switch. All right, can use switch statement, and also use loops instead of recursive functions. That is to optimize performance for larger statements. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Thank you for staying to the end. In my next video, we will cover objects and arrays in JavaScript. We will explore how to create and manipulate objects and arrays and how we can use it in codes. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next